So the reason this is not functioning as we would expect it, with the capsule getting taller when we stand up or shorter when we crouch or moving with us left to right, as best as I understand it, based on some other folks who know more than me who have found the workaround. In Unity's code, it's not the position's not being updated every frame. It's just sort of happening like not all the time. So we can work around this problem by writing a kind of helper script, our own piece of code that does the updating. So I'm going to base our solution heavily on code that I learned from Justin Barnett, who runs a cool VR channel. The differences, I'm adapting his solution. I'm just updating some of the terminology because some of the variable names have changed and like namespaces and stuff like that since the version that he authored his on. So I'll take you through the logic as best as I understand it, but with the understanding that that again I am teaching this in the context of as little code as possible. So I will also just post the code for this if you don't want to recreate it yourself and you just want to import it as a script to do the job. That's cool too. So the first thing we're going to do is create a script, and we'll call it CharacterMovementHelper. And when we fire up CharacterMovementHelper, we will get our kind of basic default script in Unity. The other thing that we're going to do is go back to Unity for a second, and on XR Origin, I want us to click on the three dots, and we're going to edit the script for character controller driver. So edit script brings up the code for that class, and this was written by Unity, and we're not going to change this because we don't want to break the existing code, which will be updated in new versions and may eventually not require what we're doing here at all as a workaround. But we're going to copy a portion of their code and use it as a basis for ours. So as we go down, we're going to grab the part from line 107 down to line 123. That's the portion that is the method update character controller. So I'm just gonna control or command C this, and then jump over to the character movement helper. All right, so we've copied this code out of Unity's character controller driver, and we're going to put it in our character movement helper. Here's again the default format of a Unity script. We're going to put this code we copied way down the bottom, just above the final curly bracket. So after void updates brackets, but before this last one. And so now we can start from here, but we have to make a couple of adjustments. Unity named all of their variables with this m_ format. I'm going to remove that, and all of these variables should start with a lowercase letter, but without the m_. So we're going to remove m_, and then if the first letter is like XR capital, we're going to change it to lowercase xr. So same thing with character controller. Here we go. I'm just going to iterate through all this. Min height, max height, all right, so step one out of the way. The next thing we're going to do is sort of reverse engineer this, build it backwards, I guess, you know, just sort of following the logic. So this is a piece of code that we grabbed from Unity and just cleaned up the variable names. And what this does is update the character controller. It changes its height and position. The problem was that it wasn't doing it every frame. So this is a method called update character controller, and we want it to do it every frame. So we're going to put it in the update section, which is called once per frame. So the way we do this is we just call it, which is to say we name it. We say update character controller, and then you put in an open and close parentheses and a semicolon to kind of end your command. And so that's how we call it every frame. So far, so good. Now the only thing we have to do is inform this piece of code of a couple of things. A couple of namespaces that this is referring to, and a couple of variables that this is referring to. So again, namespaces happen up at the top. What these are other collections of code and classes and methods and things like that that you can call and refer to. So we need not only the general Unity engine, but we also need Unity engine.xr.interaction.toolkit, and then semicolon, and we need one more, unity.xr.coreutils. And those are two namespaces that have concepts that get referred to down here. Then we've got to get our variables in order. So all these lowercase variables that we named down here have to get defined up here. So these are all going to be private variables, and they are three different types. So we need an XR origin, and we're going to name that what we named it down here, XR origin, with the lowercase x. And then we're going to follow that same logic on the other variables you see down there. So there's character controller, and we're going to name that character controller. And then here, we're going to need a character controller driver. And we're going to shorten things up and call this one driver. The only other trick that is worth knowing, and again, this is adapted from another channel, Justin Barnett's work. We're grabbing this min height and max height from what we set it as in the driver. So we don't need to set those independently. We can just pull those directly out of the character controller driver. So I'm just adding driver dot to the min height and driver dot to the max height down here. And then finally, so we've told our script, these are the variables in question. And then at the beginning, in start, we need to do what I believe is called instantiating them. And what that means is we say, hey, that variable XR origin, I'm going to tell you what it equals at the beginning. And so what it equals is get component, angle brackets, XR origin, close angle brackets, open and close parentheses, and semicolon. And then again, we're following the same logic with the other variables. So the variable character controller is going to be equal to get component character controller. And then we open and close parentheses and semicolon. And the variable driver is going to be equal to get component character controller driver. and then we open and close parentheses. Okay, with that done, we should hit save. And what this does is take all of this code that sets the height and size of our character controller and call it every frame. And these are the variables in question that need to exist for it to do that. So that's as best as I understand it. Again, if you don't want to figure out what all that means or how to reconstruct it yourself, I will put that piece of code in the links so that you can just throw it on. And the way you're going to throw it on is you drag CharacterMovementHelper to your XR origin game object. And now, when we hit play, in scene mode, you should see that it shrinks and grows in height. And as I move left to right, it moves with me, which it didn't used to do. So that's how we get it fully respecting the movement of the headset with every updated frame.